Welcome back to Unpopular People.
We believe that listening and learning from each other is key for personal development and success.
Today in our interview, Gareth.
Gareth is an exercise physiologist, originally from Austria.
He lives in Australia now and used to travel around the whole world.
During his travels, he found meaning in his life and learned a lot about self-development.
It also helped him to recover from a breakup with his fiancée and to become an expert in his field.
If you are interested in what he does, visit our website www.unpopularpeople.com in our services and podcast section.
On our website you can also find a donate button to help and support us in what we are doing with Unpopular People.
And now enjoy this inspiring interview with Gareth. Yeah, hello Gareth, hello and welcome to our podcast Unpopular People. Great that you have time today for us. We are here at the Gold Coast, Australia, sitting with you in our living room. And the first question we want to ask, where were you born and how did you grow up?
First of all, thank you to both of you for having me today. To the question, I was born in Austria. And I spent virtually my whole life in Austria in a small little village close to the Czech and the German border in the north. Yet, probably also apparent in my accent, half of me is South African. So my mother is from Johannesburg in South Africa. I've still got some relatives there. But probably only spent a few years of my life, my early childhood in South Africa. And haven't been back ever since. So I know I have to go back sometime. And my childhood in Austria wasn't that exciting, I would say. It's just imagine a small little village of 200 souls. The only special thing about it was the golf club and the amazing view across the whole Alp mountain chain. That's something that's very particular. And just went through normal schooling and ended up at the army and then the university. Studied sports science and also worked for the university. And then I went abroad.
What kind of child were you? Did you listen to your parents, or were you just doing your own thing? And were you really cheeky? Or tell us a little bit about your childhood.
That's actually a very good question, because it interests me personally very much now, is childhood and childhood conditioning. Yes, the child that I was a very, very good, too good child, very obedient, never really complained, as good as gold, not a moment's problem, like my mother would always say. But exactly in that I see a lot of problem. If you're never a moment's problem, then there's not something not quite right. And there are many reasons for me developing in that way. So maybe we dive into this a bit later. But probably I lost a bit of the thread now. But concerning my upbringing, I was never a problem. I never raised any wishes, any desires. I just went with the flow. I did as I was told, and I thought that was what my life was going to be. I never challenged it. I never challenged my parents, but I always had this feeling when I was small that I did want more, but I didn't know how to get it. And a long time I thought, okay, this is how life was supposed to be. But I did feel that a lot of things I deprived myself of, or I thought the world was depriving me of. Yes. But all in all, I would say it was a very nice childhood, very stable, very secure. I had everything that I could ever want. I also went through very good education, probably the best one could imagine. Yet, as my parents are both single children, I grew up without a big family. So there are no aunts, there are no uncles. My grandmother was in South Africa, and my parents didn't have that many friends also. So socializing was something that I had to learn as a grown-up, for instance. Also in the community of the village, we weren't really that present. Of course, as you know, you guys live abroad, have been living abroad. It's difficult to integrate. People have got a very finely attuned ear to foreigners. Even if you speak well and you understood, something is missing. And that was very difficult for my mother to integrate into the community. Different mentalities, different way of handling things, and which was pretty much alien to the people there. And that's the kind of environment that I and also my sister grew up in. Like being there, but not really being part of it. And then, yeah, as an adult, I did make some big life changes that made me get all that I was missing in my childhood.
And do you remember the time back in South Africa? So do you have any memories of this time? How old were you when you moved with your family?
I was about 4 years old when we moved from South Africa to Austria again. It was for practical reasons that we stayed in Africa, since my father was working in the oil fields in Libya. And my mom needed some help raising me, of course, like any mother does. And the memories that I can recall are mainly related to my grandfather. He wasn't my biological grandfather, but he acted like a grandfather would. Maybe the first role model that I had, because my father wasn't very, very present as he was working abroad. So I've got memories of waiting for him, returning from the pharmacy. He was a pharmacist. I've got memories in Umhlanga on the coast in South Africa, playing with him in the sand, him having my back. I actually wrote a nice article about that the other day, about men role models, about their influence, about memory in general. And yes, and then only in Austria I learned German. And fun enough, going back to Austria and learning German, and my father being the only person speaking German to me, I thought that I was supposed to speak German to men and English to women. So it is actually quite symbolic for the different languages that women and men speak. It is like their behavior is like speaking a different language. So going back to South Africa, then I spoke German to my grandfather. That is something that fascinates me. It was very symbolic for how different the wiring of the brains, the female and the masculine brain, is.
And talking about your mom and dad a little bit, you said your dad was working in Libya, and so what did your mom do, and your parents in general, what did they do for work, and has it shaped you in any way of what you're doing yourself now?
My mother went back to college at a very late stage in her life. I suppose she must have been mid-40s, I would say, and she's a teacher now. So she went through teachers' college in Austria, which was challenging for her. She speaks fluently, yet studying is totally different. My father was born in 1948, so just after the war, tough times, and he did an apprentice as a mechanic for industrial machines, farming machines, and also became a turner, like turning metal, and that's how I landed up in South Africa, because they had programs inviting those type of workers over, flight paid, first week hotel paid, And yeah, sounds very adventurous. Why not do it? So my father is probably not the intellectual type of person, but he's a strong believer, a very committed person, has got high working morals, and that's how he became successful in his way, in his scope, which was always hard work. Like my father doesn't know anything else, and that is the downside of it. And whereas my mother, as South Africa is, she came from a different world. She's more wired in a way of creating wealth in a different way, not through hard work, but through educating. So if the education was up to my father, I would have landed up doing an apprentice and making my living from any job in the area. My mother, however, knew that education was very important. So I think probably that is the challenge that I'm facing now, is to combine my crafty skills and my intellectual skills to form something of my own. So both of them influenced me in very different ways. But I'm very grateful now for both perspectives, for both approaches now in my life. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
I would like to come back to what you said about the difference between men and women. Was there a certain experience in your past where you found out about this?
Yeah, I think what challenged me a lot was, of course, to understand women in general. I think every man is challenged with that. And this example of the different languages I brought up because I was hoping that you would follow up on that, because my father also at a later stage in my life, when I was a teenager, wasn't that much physically present. So he worked in Germany, but he also wasn't emotionally present. And I think that is a problem of many young men or boys that are growing up, that they haven't got this role model because of circumstances or because of upbringing, that they're not emotionally present. So the connection to the languages is now that I was dominantly raised by my mother. So there's a lot of female energy there. Okay, that's not good though. That's what I realized at a later stage in my life. If you're raised by a woman and formed to a man, that would be an ideal partner for a woman. You understand what I mean? Because there are really great male attributes, also assertiveness, aggression, determination, stability, creating, protecting, that a woman can't really teach or convey. So that's why the man also has to be there to balance. Life is about balance. So my father spoke a different language, so to say. And that, unfortunately, he couldn't convey that well because he was either not physically present, and if he was physically present on the weekends, he had his project going on, and he wasn't emotionally available. So then you are mainly exposed to the not so good attributes of a man, and the not so good attributes of a woman, that you end up being too soft, too compassionate, too gentle as a man. And then on the other side, because you are gentle, you try to cover the shadow side of yourself, the aggression, the disappointment, or emotions in general. So that is what I nowadays refer to when I think of this symbolic language problem that I had then. So I can't really give you a specific example where it impacted me, because it impacted me throughout my whole life. And part of my life I dedicated now to this language problem between women and men, especially when educating children. Because a child needs both energies, a feminine, a masculine energy, whether it is coming from the mother or the father, a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt. Yes, exactly. Can be same sex either, but it's about the energies being balanced.
And do you have any experience with this? I think it's a really interesting topic. Have you any experience with this, like later in your life, with a relationship with a partner, to miss like the masculine and the feminine energy in a relationship?
That's a very good question, actually. It's a very good follow-up question, because that's how I realized. And I think without 2 significant relationships that I had in my life, I think I would have never drawn those conclusions. Still at 21 or still at 25, I was dreaming my life and not really living it. So based on the conditioning that I experienced, which was an exposure with the best intentions from my parents. Parents always do the best that they can with the knowledge and the tools that they have got. So certain tools were amazing. So I got the best education. I graduated with 2 degrees, which was quite remarkable for my parents and also for myself. Yet certain tools I wasn't equipped with, and that, as I've mentioned previously, were social skills and also emotional skills, and also a certain amount of masculine traits that would have helped me to get a bit further with the knowledge that I had from my degree. And luckily I had a wonderful person by my side for 5 years, a Portuguese girl that really changed my world around. She showed me what it was like to live my life. And she really took me out of Austria onto the small island of Madeira, and that is where my eyes opened. That's when I realized, wow, it's really good if you've got a big circle of friends, if you've got a big family, aunts and uncles, and they included me as one of them. From day one, I was part of it. The grandmothers, so caring and loving. Probably my grandmother shouldn't be hearing this now, but more present than my grandmother was ever. More caring, loving. Yes, so through this girl by my side in those 5 years, I realized what living was about, what I wanted, but I didn't understand my unhappiness, even though I had everything. I worked at a university, I worked at clinics, I had a girl by myself that I supposedly loved or really loved, but I didn't understand the type of love that I had or the emotional state I was in. And supposedly having this, I should be happy. Not so. You've got the career, you're making some money, you're starting, and you've got a partner that you love. But still I wasn't satisfied. And that is where I got nervous and anxious, also because of conditioning. I thought, okay, how rational me? How can I be utterly sure that this girl is the right one for me, never ever having tried, in inverted commas, another girl, you know? So that what made me doubt, because we were engaged. And I did break up, and then now 6 years later I did realize, okay, it was love after all. So it was this relationship and another one that made me realize that men and women speak different languages, that are different energies, that is a childhood conditioning that governs our life, and only through awareness we can break it up. Otherwise we pass it on to our children again. And through books, through people that I met on my path, whether it was in Italy, in Brazil, in Greece, Angola, Trinidad, and also now here or in traveling in Southeast Asia, you meet people that maybe are sent or have to be there at this respective time in your life to offer you a tool. And with this tool, you grow more aware, and you learn to understand yourself better, and you feel better equipped. And now with all these experiences, all the people that I met, I feel better equipped than ever before. I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I have got love in my life, even though I'm single, and I'm not yearning to be with anybody. No, so there's no realization unless there's pain or suffering. I think everybody has to go through that. Yeah, that is maybe a brief summary of of your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very personal insight as well. So what is also interesting for me and for our listeners, I guess, because you talked about your degree, you talked about you worked at clinics and you traveled the world and all those things. But let's take another step back. And you talked about your education. Your mom brought you to education. You kind of said this. And so what education did you go through? And what was the outcome? Like, who are you now? What is your profession?
So I am what one would call here an exercise physiologist or sports science, which means it's a form of physiotherapy, but it's an active form of physiotherapy. That means I don't move people passively after surgery or with aches and pains. I'm also a massage therapist, so I help people with their aches and pains or after injuries or surgeries, but with active muscle training. So I help people by manipulating their muscles. Previously I mentioned that life is about balance and our body is also about balance. So from the physical point of view, our muscles also have to be in balance. So if you imagine your biceps and your triceps of your arm, it's no good if one is weaker than the other or stronger than the other. You can make a muscle stronger by strengthening it, but you can also depower it by stretching it. So it has to be in balance. And that's what I do now, also as a personal trainer here. Well, that's what it's called, but I do like the term exercise physiologist. And I got to being this by doing my A-levels, or matric, as we say in South Africa, at grammar school. I did my compulsory military service, and then I thought I finally want to do something that I'm interested in. And I was always a very sporty guy, very active guy, for probably not the right motives then, because sport was an escape for me. Like the emotional turmoil that I went through in my youth, that was my escape. Whenever I couldn't handle my life, I went for a run in the forest. And then I realized, I can kick a ball, I can run fast, let me join the football club. Okay, so then I ended up playing football. And then I thought, I'm quite good. And everybody said I was quite good at that. And then I thought, let me study sports science, because I really love that. I watch all the sport programs. And I did the sport admission exam. I had to train 3 months for it, but I managed. And then I picked up the sports science, but with the intention of becoming the next TV presenter. That was my idea. I wanted to go into journalism, and so I also studied sport journalism. That's one of my degrees, a small degree there. But I realized, it takes a bit more than a qualification and skill to end up being a TV presenter. You need the right connections. You need to fall into those things. So I gave that up, and I'm very happy with where I am now. Especially here, this experience in Australia showed me that what I learned at university really works. But all the theory is nothing worth if you haven't got your own experience that confirms it or that falsifies certain things. And especially with the people that I have been training all along, I must admit now that with some I had no clue what to do. So I read up and I informed myself, and that is what the university does. They don't make you study this by heart and study that by heart. They help you to develop your mind, to make it analytical and critical, and that you reflect and can apply knowledge on different cases. So people came to me and couldn't lift their arms. They had a big shoulder problem. And then by scrutinizing, I figured out what it was, try and error. But based on the knowledge from the university, I'm doing heavy weightlifting now with one guy that 3 months ago couldn't elevate his arm like this. And now I'm doing shoulder press with 20 kilos. No problem whatsoever. And that is where I'm very grateful, because I needed this experience to totally understand what I learned at university. That's why internships are very important to gain experience. And because still at the university, I thought I was an expert in everything. Because I had the grades, I was good. I was also a tutor at the university in the scientific team, analyzing biathletes, shooting diagnostics, skiing diagnostics. But when I started teaching windsurfing in Italy at Lake Garda, I realized that I had no presentation skills. I had no talking skills. I had no methodology. And I realized that, especially with the kids, because their attention span is very short, so I had to get to the point. And Italy and Greece helped me to speak better. And then the experience that I made in Brazil, in tourism, helped me to keep people entertained and play the fool, be the clown, not caring about what people say, or to sell my service at Copacabana Beach, walking up and down the beach, approaching random people. This wasn't me when I was 21, or the shy kid in the village. So what I'm trying to say is you can have all the knowledge at the university, but without the experience, without the exposure of the real world, this is null and void. And the other way around, you can have all the experience from life, but if you haven't got any backing from theory, from other great minds, then it's also not that valid. And so that is my approach now with training people, also my approach with life, that when somebody criticizes me, I take it on, I think about it, and try to grow, try to move forward.
How old were you when you decided to move away from Austria and to start this traveling and to gain all the experiences?
I was 26 25 I think, when I left Austria. It was shortly after I broke up with my girlfriend that I had been together with 5 years. It was a very painful separation. Now we're again on speaking terms, which really makes me very happy. But then it was probably the worst way I could possibly have broken up with a person, or my best friend even. But it was necessary. I was still a boy, part of me is still a boy. I think in every man is a boy, and there will always be a boy. Yeah, but I was very boyish, meaning that I didn't know what it was to be a man. We're all male, but are we really masculine men? And that is when my path started. It was becoming a man with 26, as ridiculous as it may sound. But I really learned for life when I left my country. You haven't got your family around, you haven't got friends around, you have to create everything anew. Every place I've been to, I had to start all over again. Eventually you do get tired of that, of starting new everywhere you go to. But it was the best school. And so I was 26. And was anything else that...
No,
that's a yeah.
question about. Thank you.
And so you said you had this... What was the switch to make you decide, okay, I break up with my girlfriend, I go through all this pain, and I go to another country? Was there a specific situation or a moment that you remember where you said, like, okay, I want to change those things in my life and I want to travel and have this other experience?
That's also a very good question, a very good follow-up question. Yeah. At that time, I was strangely on the Cape Verde Islands. I was doing my windsurf internship on Boa Vista, and funny enough, I wrote about this morning again. All this experience that I made abroad the last 6 years, I'm trying to put in form of a book, a memoir. So I'm writing every day. That's why I've got this routine of getting up at 4 to get going. And it started in Boa Vista, and that made me realize that parts of our life, I know it's a big topic, but certain things I believe are fated. Certain things have to happen, and you don't understand the reason, but you fight it in the beginning. So as I said previously, I wasn't happy with my life, although I had everything. I had everything, but I still wasn't satisfied, because I knew everything in theory, but you can't understand love in theory. You can't understand happiness in theory or fulfillment. You have to experience it. So there was this innate calling in me to venture out of my comfort zone. I was kept in this bubble, protective bubble, by my parents all my life. And this drive, though, wanted me to venture. And I knew that in order to do that, what I wanted, I would have to break up. Because we were good for each other for those 5 years, and we would have been good for each other right until now if probably I had somebody to talk to. But I had nobody to talk to, nobody I could share my thoughts with, because I felt guilty for doubting. I'm together with this person. I can't confess to anybody that I'm not sure about it. I'm wearing a ring on my finger, so I can't. And but that's the way life works. If you haven't got help from a certain side, you get it from somewhere else. So it was a certain book that fell into my hands from Paulo Coelho. My girlfriend then was a big fan of his books. It's called Manuscript Found in Accra, and he's the best-selling author of The Alchemist, which I read at a later stage in Italy. A sweet story, contains a lot of wisdom, and so did this book, and it made me realize that in this relationship I couldn't have that what I was yearning for, and I wanted to realize my dreams. And one of these dreams was to teach a season as a windsurfing teacher. One of these dreams was to do as I wanted to without having to justify myself. But as immature as I was in a relationship, you can't do that. You can't just do as you please. You have to compromise. But I was compromising myself too much, and that is where my unhappiness lay in. I was always trying to please everybody, yearning for people's approval, not thinking of what I wanted. And then this immature me thought the only way to get at what I wanted was to leave everything behind, and also the good things. Painful experience, not an easy experience, a necessary one though. So the things that influenced me most, as you asked me, was definitely this one book from Paulo Coelho, the philosophers Seneca, Epictet, and also a significant person that I met in Boa Vista called HP, Hans-Peter. I tried to find him, I wanted to talk to him, but I only know his name.
Is it H.P. Baxter from Scooter? You know?
Yes. No, it's exactly him, with the dyed hair, the gelled hair, and...
Was he screaming at you all the time? That probably was Scooter.
Yes, he made me cry many times. No. But he must have been a life coach. He was very aware then, and he was this person beside a good friend of mine that just invited himself to come to Boa Vista without me even asking him. His name is Johnny, and I really love this guy, and he was probably the only person that I could really talk to, the only person that I really opened up to. And then in Boa Vista I opened up to this stranger that I only helped to launch his kite and receive it again from him when he was done. And he listened to me. It was a Valentine's Day, funny enough, and I had a big disagreement with the girlfriend then. And so he made me realize 3 things, that by just using sand and stones And I like to talk about that because I was telling him about my difficulties in a relationship, and it was clear to him that I was afraid of letting go. How can you let go of something that had been so good for so long? Your friend, your partner, the person that you trust in. And then he placed out a whole lot of stones, and then he pointed at one and said, that is you, and the rest are your family, and this is your partner. So he picked up one stone and he placed it somewhere else, and he asked me, so what will happen if you change your position? You know, perfectionist as I was trying to give him the answer that he was looking for, but I ended up saying nothing. And then he said, look, if you change your position, the other people have got the option whether to follow you or remain at their position. So that opened my eyes already. So that I wanted to change. I knew I had to change, but I was scared of leaving the people behind. And he said, yeah, you will have to do that. And then I said to him, well, I can't let go of these people. Like, I invested, like I was really so much driven by that. I made an investment. I have to stay with this investment. You know, that's how rationally I thought about love and my partner. And then he picked up the stone and he said, what will happen if I let the stone go? Again, didn't say anything. And then he dropped it. And then he turned his hand up to the sky and said, look, you had to let something go in order to receive. And meaning sometimes we have to let go of something that we can welcome something new in our lives. But then still I wasn't satisfied. I needed the third example to really understand the full scope of where he was going to go to. So he took two stones and he moved them in circles, like an orbit of planets. And he said, relationships on this planet work like planets on an orbit. You get to know each other, you meet, you stay together for a certain time, only to move apart again. And that is what helped me understand the nature of things on this planet and also relationships. That sometimes things are good for a certain time, which doesn't mean that you won't meet again, as it is an orbit. So it was HP, it was Johnny, it was these books that made me come to the conclusion that I had to make the step. Yeah.
And so what advice could you give to others to put this into practice? Because I think there's this good inspiration, and probably people will read these books, or maybe they have a mentor or like an inspiration, like another person in their life that is telling them, like, oh, like those advices are very helpful. But how can you put this into action? Because like the last step to make this decision to go, like, finish a relationship or to go through the pain, like how can you use this, or what advice could you give others to go through the pain and to actually go the first step, go to another country, quit their job or find a new job? Or what advice could you give to others to, like what you learned out of this?
Probably my approach wasn't the best one. I couldn't advise people to do it in such a radical way. But I was lacking three essential things that are important in any relationship, which I didn't have. I didn't have those tools. So I wasn't honest. I was neither honest to my partner, nor was I honest to myself. I didn't allow myself to think those things that were uncomfortable. And I wasn't able to tell my partner honestly. So that's the second one, communication. I didn't communicate. And the other thing is compassion. I didn't feel for myself. That means I didn't give myself worth enough to follow what I wanted and my wishes, and also other people, to consider them. So I considered them too much, but for the wrong motives. So it's honesty, communication, compassion in my eyes. And that's why I ended up blacking out totally. Like I was sitting like in front of the two of you, and I blacked out and I couldn't utter a word. I just knew that I had to make this move and break up. But if I was able to communicate, I would have said, look, I would like to go to Italy. I would like to work as a windsurf teacher. Can you imagine going with me for those 6 months? Communication. if I was honest to myself already before that I wanted that and didn't conceal it, then it wouldn't have to got to that talk. And if I valued myself enough, I would have communicated that weeks and months and years before that I wanted to do that. So it was survival instinct. I think that's what answers your question. It was survival instinct, blacking out, just knowing I need to get out, I need to get out, I need to get out. That was the only thing. It was the hardest decision in my life. Still, as funny as it sounds now, but this childlike, immature me, totally overwhelmed, had no tools to cope with life. So that's why you have to talk to people. You need a surrounding. You need somebody that you can trust in, confide in, besides your partner. And what my biggest mistake was that I built my life around my partner. So once I left my partner, I fell into a hole because I didn't have anything. So I went through these hard lessons because of those three things. And if you focus on that instead, creating meaningful connections with people, nurturing those relationships, being honest to yourself, which means to be your true self, be genuine, authentic, and also feel for other people. That means you add value to your community. You give without expecting in return. Then I think you can avoid those things, and that's probably my advice that I would give to other people.
Thank you very much. It seems like you learned a lot out of this. Next to journaling, what are you doing to process this? You mean what am I doing to process everything that happened in my past? I think I've been doing that all along, and that's probably another bit of advice that I can give people, is to write. It can start just with a log. I had eggs for breakfast. I did this on that day. And that's just simple. Because we do get overwhelmed if you start something new. But that's what helped me. I told you guys I had nobody that I could turn to. So the only person that I trusted was my diary. So I started writing because I thought, okay, I know that something is up. I know that something is wrong with me, terribly wrong, but I just don't know why. I thought, why? I know that I rationally love my girl, but I'm just not feeling it. So I wasn't in touch with my emotions. I didn't happen. I won't go into detail about that because I mentioned these three factors already. So writing was my approach to deal with everything that overwhelmed me, and I was too shy to share. Probably therapy would have probably been the easier approach, to go to therapy, but that is something that would have lowered my self-worth, and that is where truth and compassion comes in. That sort of the result is maybe self-worth. I thought that I needed to be good or present myself as good to be loved. And I thought if I went for therapy, it meant that I wasn't okay the way I was. And I didn't want to admit that to myself. My girlfriend even suggested I went for therapy. And yeah, it would have been good. I believe a lot in therapy, especially if the person treating you has went through hardship themselves and understand what might be going on and don't just go according to books. Yeah, so I'm still writing because I believe that I can add value through my writing. Sometimes, but I think it's a thin line, because there are days where I think, oh yeah, great, this is exactly what I have to do. And then the next day, doubts come up and I think, gosh, maybe I'm just a very crazy person. Maybe I really need to go for therapy. I doubt that option very much. But I think that in order to create something great, you have to be somewhat crazy. You have to be on the other end somehow. But
it is very important to remember your intentions or your motives. And I'm not writing because I want to show how good I am or what I've all learned. No, I'm writing because it comes from deep within me. There's no reason that justifies what I'm doing. I can't explain why I'm doing it. I just know I have to. And it makes me really happy. It fulfills me. And that is something that everybody has and has to find. There's something that motivates you more than anything else, and you have to find it. You have to expose yourself to it. You have to break out of your comfort zone to maybe experience that. So it's this, I don't know what to call it, but this is what motivates me. And because I went through this hardship, I wouldn't want to save men like I was from this. I believe that they have to go through all this to do the healing. But what I would have needed was somebody that supported me and guided me. And that's what I would like to offer in future. That through my writing I can make people aware, guide them, and I would want to create a new blog to support people. That is one passion of mine, but overall it is helping. So I would also like to focus on helping people physically with their aches and pains, because it's very much the same, emotional pain and physical pain. So if something motivates me, then it's helping people with pain that they don't understand. Yeah.
And your travels, you said, I want to go back because I think it's really interesting. I love traveling, and we love traveling. And so which countries did you go to? How long did you stay? And what is your favorable memory in those countries? You mentioned Brazil. I've been to Brazil and I loved it. It's interesting, especially as a single person. I was single back then too. Good to be single. It's good to be single in Brazil, yes. So yeah, what are your experience on the travels, and did you find anything there that relieved the pain?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Yeah, good on you. If I found anything that relieved the pain, yes, exactly. And maybe that is part of the problem that we're facing nowadays, because there's so many things that distract us from the pain that we are feeling. We've got so many things that offer instant gratification, whether it's any form of the addiction, like we spoke about coffee earlier on. We love all kinds of things that make us addicted. They're good and they serve a certain purpose. Yet the dosage of it is the poison. So if you expose yourself too much to just cover a certain pain that you're feeling, you're not honest to yourself. You're not truthful to yourself. So during these travels, I've had many pitfalls. Fell in deep holes, realizing, I covered this of myself with that, and one of the ways to cover the pain or the hole or the void that I felt in myself were women. Definitely, I can't say that I was a womanizer, no, because I did care about the person, so I didn't feel that I ever used anybody, but that was one form to increase my self-value. I think every man goes through that. Trying to prove himself, trying to prove his masculinity, his potency, maybe. But after all, it is a desire. And that, I think, is where pain lies in. Like from the approach of many religions, or even Buddhism. I think they're the main religion that propagate that idea that desire, every pain derives from desire. So, yeah, I filled it with women, I filled it with alcohol. I didn't fill it with drugs, no, I was never really a drug person, but alcohol, women, excessive sport, coffee also, everything that would numb the pain, but nothing ever goes away until you have learned a lesson. So luckily, I was aware enough to realize where I was deviating from my path, and I always came back. And awareness, in my opinion, derives from truth, compassion, and communication in no matter way it works. Communication can be in writing, can be in talking with people, reading certain things. Then truth explains itself. And also compassion, of course, understanding yourself and other people better. And that's how you grow more and more aware. And that is where the healing lies, is being aware, seeing the problem and seeing it for what it really is. And then through this knowledge, trying to improve the next time. So with every girl that I met, I learned a lesson. And probably one of the most significant lessons I learned was in Trinidad. So I lived a year in Trinidad and Tobago. I got there as a journalist in oil and gas, interviewing people like the two of you interviewing me now. And it was very interesting to hear people talk about something that I didn't resonate with at all, and that is exploitation of the people living in these countries and also Mother Earth. But it was interesting insofar how people justify what they're doing and how they still believe that they are adding value. Yes, they are in a way, because people do have jobs and they are developing local content and they're adding value with the oil that they produce, yet at what cost? But I think the lessons that I learned were always through the people that were closest to me. That was this 1-year relationship I had with a girl there. I realized many things about women, about the woman's cycle, about depression, about children, because she was mother of two, or is mother of two, and also of aging and of death, because I lived with two women. It was a very symbiotic relationship. They were 65 and 74. And I stayed with those ladies that introduced me to other people as their toy boy, which was, yeah.
Was it true?
No. No, I have to disappoint you there. It wasn't, but it was funny even so. So yeah, through those ladies, I learned a lot about generosity and also about having faith, because one of the ladies' name was Faith. And that's when, no matter if I write a letter or I write in my books, I write the faith with a capital F, because I always want to be reminded of that woman and the influence that she had on me. So that was Trinidad, for instance. In Rio, I learned how to create a business from scratch, just by having the tools. So the only difference between me and a person from the favela, and I lived in a very dangerous favela, shooting every day. When I look back, I still can't quite grasp how come I exposed myself to all of that. But again, we learned through differences, through contrasts. And the lesson I learned there was that I was equipped with knowledge. And that's where I will forever be grateful for my mother, that she made sure and pushed me and kicked my ass when I needed it, that I got this education. Because I used my languages, I created a homepage, I designed flyers, I took the experience from windsurfing and sailing and walked up Copacabana Beach and spoke to random people, but not just any people. You develop an eye. I didn't walk from one person to the other just giving the flyer and walking on. No, I had a look. Okay, who do I want to give a tour to? I want to take people through a favela that I appreciate it. I can't take a overweight person on a stand-up paddle board and do a tour with him. No, it won't work. Or I can't take a totally unfit person up a hill and do a hiking tour with him. So I had to learn to see the people for who they really were. And then you see what are gringo attributes, like the Brazilians refer to the foreigners. Okay, he's got a sunburn, She's got a backpack. He wears socks and sandals. So this person is drinking mate from a little cup and has got a thermic can. So they're Argentinians. I love them as they are, but I didn't want to do business with them. Or French people don't speak French and they don't speak English. So I could see from a mile away if that was a French person. No offense to French people. So that was the experience that I made there. And also connecting with part of my family, a distant family. And in Greece I experienced what it feels like to have a broken heart. Because I was lovesick. Really, really lovesick. And that is where, again, a book fell into my hands called The Power of Now. Everybody knows it. Yes, exactly. Eckhart Tolle. And by being more present, I managed to overcome it because it was irrational. Mind created pain. And what did I learn in Angola? I was also in Angola as a journalist. I realized what loyalty and betrayal was, for instance. Yeah, then occasional trips to Toronto, to New York, which were about illnesses and yeah.
So, were you employed during this time, or were you self-employed? Like, how did you get to those places and get those jobs for writing and as a journalist? Like, how did this work?
Well, that's where you have to get back to things just falling into place. If you ask the universe, the divine energy, or God, or however you want to call it, for what you want or for help, you will eventually get it, if it serves the greater good. So in Brazil, I realized that I was at a dead end. I was, and probably I can say it safely now, that I was living illegally in Brazil, working illegally in Brazil. I had no opportunity to grow unless I changed the status. I didn't want to marry anybody just to stay. So when I feel that I can't grow, I move on. And at that time, I was at the brink of leaving, and that is when a significant person came into my life again. And it was mainly women. Like, to me, women always came in threes. So there was a woman that I kissed, that I fell for, or that I really got very close to. And the third woman was always one that opened my eyes. And there was a woman that worked for this company I ended up working for too, this oil and gas company. And she got me out of Brazil. So I did a workshop in Turkey, and then a week later I was sent to Angola, and a month later I was sent to Trinidad. So that's how I got around. So yeah, it's maybe about asking for what one wants, but one has to be very precise, one can't just ask for anything. One has to be very specific about certain things. That's what I realized, but it's based on your level of experience. Let's stay with the example of attracting the right partner in your life. Sometimes you would say, oh, I would really like to meet a Brazilian girl, like I wanted during my travels in Southeast Asia. And I met Brazilian girls because I asked for that. But then they were always lacking something that was important to me. That's how ridiculous it might sound. But only by asking precisely for what you want, and knowing that you deserve it, and knowing that it serves a greater cause, you will eventually get that. So the pitfalls came from my self-worth, from what I thought I wasn't worth of, or depriving myself of. And now in Australia, I'm getting more and more of that I really want, and I'm more and more at a point where I see myself at, and we're in a direction I want to develop in.
It's funny that you say that, because before I met Elisa, I actually wrote down a list with like all the things I wanted from a girl, because I wasn't precise enough. And I wrote like every like details, like not too detailed, but like, for example, should be sporty, and like there was something that I want from a person in my life. And I met Elisa just randomly, and it turned out that she had like, let's say 99% of the important things, that the rest doesn't matter, sometimes hair color or whatever doesn't really matter. But that's really interesting that you say this, because I also felt like if you don't really have like a certain focus, then you wander through the world, and you don't really find what you really want, and what you're really looking for. So thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add something, because I find sometimes when you're looking for something, then you won't find it. So, and you said you ask the universe, but how are you asking, and how do you know what you really want? Do you have a special tool, and how do you find it when you're looking for it? You know what I mean? So normally it doesn't work out.
I think part of it is definitely asking for it. And another part is the focus that you mentioned. And focus is another word for faith in my eyes. So, but the faith and focus, and also the wish, is not enough if the desire is too big. That means if you can't let go of the outcome. So if you're so attached to this idea of finding that jacket or finding that person, and you feel that you can't do without it, then you will always sabotage yourself. You won't get it. And that is where we heard it many times already. Oh, like in the moment we at least expected that person coming into my life, they came. Why? Because you surrendered to the outcome. We know that from Eckhart Tolle. We know that from other books. The moment you let go, you receive. But that is just part of the deal. And that's where I regard faith very much. So you have to express the wish, you have to be detached from the outcome, and you have to have absolute faith that it will happen in divine time. That means you can't decide when, how, or what is going to happen, but you communicated clearly what you want. You let go of the outcome, and you have the faith that the universe will give it to you when you're ready for it, when you're ready to receive it. And if you still don't get it, although you've got this clearly communicated, then something is still missing. You have to attract something else before you really get that big thing. And that's where I believe some people get, including me. I don't think that one ever reaches a state where one becomes everything. I believe that there are people that really get everything that they want because they're just so connected. But let's say people settle for that bit that they got. They think, oh, I communicated that to the university, these 3 things, and I got that, but I don't know, I'm in doubt. I'm not convinced. It wasn't really that what I wanted. And that again, it's difficult to let go. Probably it's only meant to happen to learn the next lesson or to prepare for the next stage. But we are so attached to this idea or this person, or we haven't got the self-worth to realize that we will attract something better. And that's not to devalue the person or the thing that we have at the current state. Yes, but these 3 factors I believe in very much. To, again, 3 things, I believe very much in numbers too. So it's another lovely trinity again of communicating the wish, being detached of it by surrendering to the outcome, and having absolute faith that it will happen. Not hoping, that would be passive, but having faith that it will happen.
Fantastic! Yes, it's because exactly that what I thought as well when I wrote down this list, because I wasn't expecting that I find this girl. Like maybe I would never have found it, but it's just because I mean, like, how do you know what you really want if you never put it into any words or never put it into any thoughts, and then you will always have like doubts and will question something that you probably can be sure of. But if you tell, like, or if you ask yourself the right questions, for example, before a relationship, like, what do you really want in this in the next relationship? You know, when you're single, and I thought I didn't, you know, I wrote this down like I don't know, maybe 2 years before. Yeah, I wasn't walking around looking for exactly this girl, because it comes up naturally. It doesn't come up, and both outcomes were fine for me.
And now you're here in Australia, and you said, you have shared all your experiences, or many experiences you had today with us in this interview, and people. You want to teach people something, and what can people learn from you? So what are your plans for the future? What do you want to teach people, and how do you want to do this?
A very good question, as I want to dedicate my ideas now. I want to dedicate my life to those ideas that I've got now. So the problem is that I've got many interests. And I think that's a problem with a person that has got talents in many areas, that you can't really be focused on something. But it also offers a holistic approach to certain things, and that's how I see life. So again, I want to help people, but it's not just in one little area. So whether it is based on what I studied at the university, with the exercise physiology, I want to help people become a better version of themselves. That can be physically, by helping them to lose weight, helping them to get balance in their body, muscular balance, or if it's the gut health or whatever it is, and also emotional health. And I think all is interconnected. Some people that I help with losing weight, they might move every day. They might have a healthy diet, but there's still something missing that they lose that weight. And it can be probably that their gut health is not balanced, or they're carrying such a lot of emotional weight with them that they can't lose these pounds also in physically. And I think Australia is a very good place for me to realize that, because it is one of the leading countries in the world. The cities are ranked among the cities worldwide with the best life quality in general, whether it's cultural, whether it's health-wise, political stability, security, safety. So I think it's a good place to create something here, and that will definitely be with exercise physiology, but also with my writing. And we especially want to target men and a woman in a relationship with those men. So it's for both genders, but it's more for women to understand how their partner is working and what stage they are currently in. Women are very attuned to changes in a man, and they don't understand what is going on. And that is where I want to offer more insight. And because men aren't very attuned, they don't know what's going on in themselves. Their partner might even know better what is going on in themselves. Especially in a culture like Australia, where men are very masculine. But there's always a feminine and a masculine side to everybody. So they're not very much connected to the feminine side. Okay? That is nothing that should emasculate a man. No, you're more masculine if you're in touch with both sides. If you have feelings and you share it and you communicate. So these two pillars I would like to focus on here is to provide help for men, and also provide help for people that want to become a better version of themselves, mentally and physically.
Here, one more question from my side, and I think that we get to the end of this really interesting and inspiring interview. So I'm interested in, what do you think? You don't have any experience yourself, you said earlier, with any like kind of drugs, but what is your thought on therapy with substances like LSD, psilocybin, or MDMA? Especially hearing now that you want to approach men and that are with a woman, for example, so that they understand each other better. And we both, Lisa and I, we listened to a really interesting podcast some days ago. We can link this in the show notes maybe. It's about how they treat couples, or like in a relationship, how they treat like if they have problems with each other, if they don't communicate, if they don't understand each other, and they do a therapy on substances like MDMA. What is your thought on this? And have you ever considered, like studying in this direction for yourself?
I definitely have, and it doesn't mean that I never tried drugs. I think everybody smoked a spliff, or maybe tried some psychedelics, which I have. And it's not that I would want to do that every day, but it altered my perspective on things. Like by trying magic mushrooms, I realized what my eyes saw, or were able to see, whether it was geometric structures, whether it was colors and totems and whatever that I saw when I had my eyes closed and when I had them open. So it was a very deep, profound experience. And the same with CBD oils. I definitely believe in the healing characteristics of the substances, yet I'm not an expert in that, and I would definitely have to outsource this if somebody happened to work together with me and they have cancer, for instance. From the perspective of a relationship that you asked, I think that, I don't know how, but there are probably experts in this area that can help to loosen up a person and to make them see, or make them less fearful. And I think drugs are there to open up blockages that we've got. Blocks in our body, limitations that are self-created, mind-created. Just an example, let's say you're in a relationship and we've got this typical bloke that can't open up to his wife. There's something going on, either the business is not running well, or he's not feeling well, or he's experiencing a midlife crisis, or something that is going on, and he doesn't feel safe enough to communicate it. Therapy would be a good way, and using the substances is a form of therapy. So perhaps it can help a person to loosen up their inhibitions, their emotional ones. And so I believe very much in the aid that these substances can have. I don't know much about it, but sometimes it's not enough to talk about it. Sometimes a person is not that talker. Sometimes a guy or even a woman, they just have to cry, or they just have to yell, show their express their aggression, but they've got these limitations, and I think that's where these substances can help to limit or to reduce those inhibitions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you have a Facebook or Instagram account or something, or a blog or a website, I don't know, where people can learn more about you?
Yes, definitely. On Instagram, people can connect with me on Gareth 5 William. So it's Gareth, the number 5, and William. I'm also on Facebook with My Spiritual Path. That's what it's called, and also my webpage called My Spiritual Path, with 2 hyphens in between, my-spiritual-path.com. And I'm also starting a new page now. Probably it will be called conscious.min.
And our last question, what would you do if you were popular instead of, let's call it unpopular? If you would be known in the whole world and everyone would listen to you, you would be on the big stages and talking to people, what would you do differently than now?
I probably would repeat what I just said, because I believe in it very much. It's based on knowledge that I acquired at the university, like scrutinizing, analyzing, interpreting, but it's also a lot of personal experience. So if I don't have to worry about, or worry is the wrong word, if I could focus entirely on what I just spoke about now, then I would have more time to go back to the university and study more in this psychological direction that really interests me. So that's what I would do. And with the influence that I had, I would try to reach as many people as I could. That's what I would use the fame or the influence for, to have a greater reach and convey the same basic things that I just mentioned.
Thank you very much. You should do exactly that.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time today. It was a very great interview, and we wish you all the best for the future.
And if there are any final words from your side, we say goodbye from our side, and then it's now the time for it.
Yes, I must also thank the two of you very much. I think that, again, here is a perfect example of people meeting for no apparent reason. We still don't know why or where it will lead to, but only by talking and by you helping me think and summarize my life and what I'm about to do, I've got a clearer direction again. So that's what I'm really grateful for, to the two of you. You definitely widened my perspective again, and you made my mind work, and that's what I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, 853. Thank you for listening to this really inspiring and deep conversation with Gareth.
We hope you liked it. For more information about our project, visit our website www.unpopularpeople.com. See you soon.